Good morning, good afternoon, everybody, and we welcome you to another Ask DTI Livecast by Thames International Business School. And this is Joel Santos, your host for today. Today will be another exciting topic. As a background, the DTI releases circulars as we continue to go to the new normal post the pandemic. And these circulars, as they come out, there are always a lot of questions among SMEs. And the challenge has been, how do you connect to DTI and ask the questions directly? Hence, this live cast. This is our opportunity to have a what we call a PPE, public-private exchange, di ba, with the DTI on the issues and the questions and clarifications we have. So usually, the format of the livecast is that we will be having a presentation by our DTI Undersecretary Ruth Castello. Then we'll have a reactions and comments from our panelists and a discussion between the panelists. We have two, and I'll introduce them to you later. And due to the large volume of the attendees, everybody will be requested to be on mute first, but please start putting your comments and your questions in the tabs. And then, as mentioned, since this is an Ask DTI forum, all of you will be given, as much as possible, a chance to ask the questions directly. Okay, so I'd like to introduce our main resource, Attorney Ruth B. Castello, our Undersecretary for the Consumer Protection Group of the DTI. Good afternoon, Yusek Ruth, and I will turn off my screen for your screen. Thank you.
Hi, Joel. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Ruth Castello, as introduced by Joel, and I'm here again to discuss matters that will interest you and that will benefit both business and the consumer. I'm going to present Memorandum Circular number 20-30 on refunds for events, whether business or personal, that have been contracted with or not contracted with but agreed upon during the period of community quarantine.
Yan, exciting yan kasi alam natin, di ba, maraming na-cancel na events, right? So, pero alam ko marami pa rin, for example, yung mga kasal natuloy pa rin one way or the other. Pero the event venue nawala. So that's one of the things we'll be tackling, Yusek. Refunds for events and many other things. Kasama ba dyan yung refunds for, kasama ba sa discussion natin yung refunds for airline tickets and everything like that? Or
no, this will cover only events, whether personal or business, and then also the rentals for vehicles for the particular event, sounds, lights, and all other accessory pertinent.
Yes, pertinent to basically the whole event organization. Okay,
yes, that's right.
So I'll let you share your slide.
Okay, all right, thank you. Let me begin. Okay, this is Memorandum Circular number 20-30, signed and issued by Secretary Lopez on June 2, 2020.
Nalagay lang ko sa presentation mode.
Ay, sorry. Okay. I have not perfected the art of zooming.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay, thank you. So shall I begin, Joel?
Yes, please.
Okay, all right, thank you. We understand that there have been a lot of questions on events that have been reserved and paid for, whether partially or fully, and that have been canceled. Currently, there is no law covering this this happening. That's why, especially during the period of quarantine, we were on 3-month quarantine. The department thought it wise to issue Memorandum Circular 20-30, also culling its authority from Republic Act 11469, or the Bayanihan to Heal as One Act. We have been asked a lot of questions when Taal eruption happened in January, and a lot of events also, whether personal or business, were canceled in the area of Batangas and nearby towns. So at that time, um, what we did was to call on the parties and then help negotiate. But this time, we already have the existing memorandum circular to cover such events. The guidelines on refund for of payments made for events affected by the public health emergency and the declaration of the state of calamity in the country is issued to provide a balanced economic relief to all persons, not only the business and not only the consumer, but both of them and everyone else involved. For events which may have been scaled down or canceled totally in view of the ongoing public health emergency. It covers all persons, both natural or juridical, whose transactions or commitments related to holding of events where full or partial payment has been made and that which event has been scaled down or canceled due to the ongoing public health emergency. And then and the resultant physical distancing directives for the imposed community quarantine, whatever it is, whether it's ECQ, MECQ, or GCQ. So these are the events defined in Memorandum Circular 20-30 for personal events, birthdays, christenings, weddings, anniversaries, and so on and so forth. And there might be also other. Sorry, leasehold is not supposed to be leasehold supposed to mean the venue of the event that is going to supposed to happen, and then all other similar events. For business events, we have conferences. We understand that both domestic and international events happen a lot in the Philippines, and that reservations have been made for all this conferences, seminars, workshops, team buildings, planning sessions, and other similar events. The refund concession means that the deposit or advance payment or the down payment for these events may be partially or fully refunded. Number one, if the date of the event falls within the community quarantine, meaning this would have been done during from beginning from March 15 until whenever GCQ will end in some parts of the country. And then for those that are already in MGCQ, the last date covered by this refund concession is the day of the lifting of the general community quarantine. And then the second factor should be that the event was scaled down or canceled due to the public health emergency and physical distancing directives, not for any other reason, but because of the public health emergency and the directives, the protocols that were done in ECQ, MECQ, and GCQ areas. So the key terms are the deposit or the advance payment, covering the use or occupancy of the leased premises or venue. It also includes the food to be catered during the event and other related services like the motor vehicle, like maybe a limousine for a wedding or a debut, or the leasing of the sound system or the lighting system that are supposed to be used for such event. And a scaled down event is one which reduces the number of guests to ensure compliance with physical distancing directives. It means that, especially now under GCQ areas, maximum number of people for an event should be 10. So if you're holding a party for a wedding or an anniversary or a conference, an international conference, you are limited to a number of 10 people in that event. So that is the scaling down of the event that we refer to in MC 20-30. The validity of a contract, of course, the DTI does not discount that there might be contracts in most transactions. And then so the terms and conditions on force majeure in that valid contract is recognized by the DTI. In lieu of a contract or in the absence of a contract, the applicable provisions of the new Civil Code of the Philippines may serve as guide. If I may just mention, I have used this a lot in both in law school and up to now in my work in the department. Article 19 of the Civil Code specifically states that every person must, in the exercise of his right and in the performance of his duty, act with justice, give everyone his due, and observe honesty and good faith. So in the absence of a contract, we apply the personal relations provisions of the new Civil Code. So when is the event host entitled to a refund? The event host is the event host would be the one who made the reservation or who's holding the wedding party or who's hosting the conference or the seminar or the workshop or the team building. So all of the following must be present for the host to be entitled to a refund. He must have made either in full or partial payment before the community quarantine was imposed. This was March 15, 2020. And then that the event was to take place during the community quarantine. Okay, so why does that include MGCQ? Sorry, there is a mistake here. The event was to take place during the community quarantine, whether during the ECQ, MECQ, or General Community Quarantine, GCQ. In Metro Manila, the National Capital Region, we are still on GCQ, and we still do not know when it's going to be lifted or when we're going to transition to MGCQ. And then the third is that the event can no longer take place because of the social distancing, physical distancing directive, and that it had to be canceled or scaled down to comply with physical distancing. I just want to make a distinction between social distancing and physical distancing. Sorry, this was the memorandum circular was made before the Department of Health clarified social and physical distancing. Social means the relationship in which you are not supposed to distance yourself from the next person, but the physical distancing is what we refer to here as in physically, literally distancing yourself from the next person. So the event, when is the event host not entitled to a refund? Any of the following may be present. If the payment was made after the community quarantine was imposed, and or if the contract between the parties provides that any prepayment made will be forfeited in case of a fortuitous event. This is the force majeure event. If there is a valid contract between the parties and it provides provisions involving fortuitous events when an event may be canceled or when the host will be entitled to a refund, or when the supplier or the events organizer or the venue owner is entitled to a refund. So we respect the validity of the contract and we recognize the obligations of both parties in cases where a contract exists. When is the venue owner required to return the money that he has already spent? These are expenses that he might have already made for the purchase of a sound equipment when he knew that he was going to be earning profit from it by leasing it to other people for events like this, or when the place has already been repainted and or renovated, particularly for this event, and other similar instances where expenses have already been made by the venue owner or the person supplying the service. And so the venue owner is required to return only a portion of the prepayment if the event was scaled down in order to comply with physical distancing directives of the government or any other government issued health and safety protocols. And if in order to prepare for the event, valid and verifiable expenses were incurred prior to the imposition of the community quarantine. Here, the venue owner or the supplier may be able to present receipts, official maybe sales invoices, proving that he had incurred such expense, particularly for the event which has been canceled, covered by this memorandum circular. There are options for refund concession. And of course, the Department of Trade and Industry recognizes that there may be negotiations or other agreements that may be made between the parties. But here are the three options that the parties may take. Number one, the host may consume the amount paid at a later date within 1 year from the lifting of the restrictions. Let's say that the GCQ in the National Capital Region ends on June 30. So the owner, the venue owner or the supplier may agree with the host or the customer or the client to make use through a credit voucher or whatever document that they may agree on, to reset the event within 1 year, anytime within 1 year from the lifting of the restriction. So if the general community quarantine is lifted on June 30, the event may still be done or may still be made, or any event for that matter, but the customer will have the option to use it within 1 year until June 30 of 2021. Or the parties may either get the net of the amount paid after deducting relevant actual expenses incurred before the imposition of restrictions. This is, of course, with proof. Or get back the full amount regardless of expenses incurred after the imposition of restrictions. This, if there are no expenses spent or incurred by the venue owner or the supplier, and there is no proof to that effect. I mean that there is no proof that he had consumed any amount of the payment made by the host. The host may be able to get the full amount, regardless of other expenses incurred, if there is no proof after the imposition of restrictions. Wait. Okay. Sorry, I will go back to this. There is a provision in Memorandum Circular 20-30 that if payments are made after the imposition of the restrictions, which is March 15, let's say a down payment was made on March 16, 2020, the refund may no longer be given, or the venue owner or the supplier may not be entitled to the refund, because the place or the entire country had already been placed in a public health emergency and a state of calamity, and that we would never know when it was going to be lifted. So any payment made after such declaration is no longer allowed to be refunded. Other options for refund concession for scaled down events or functions, the owner of the venue or its representative shall give the other party the following options. Again, same options as that of the total cancellation of the event. Consumption of the amount paid at a later date within 1 year from the lifting of the restrictions. Like the example earlier given, until June 30, 2021, if the GCQ in Metro Manila or in the National Capital Region is lifted, and then we transition to MGCQ, or gets a refund in such amount proportionate to the agreed scale down event or function after deducting relevant actual expenses incurred before the imposition of restrictions. Again, the venue owner or the supplier may show proof of actual expenses incurred in preparation for the event, I just need to make this clear. The expenses have been incurred prior to the imposition of restrictions, meaning preparations have been made maybe by at the latest March 14 of 2020, or get a refund in such amount proportionate to the agreed scale down event or function regardless of expenses incurred after the imposition of restrictions. So this the refund may still be availed of for scaled down events or functions for regardless of whatever expense was incurred after the imposition of restrictions. And then, so as an act of goodwill, under Memorandum Circular 20-30, it says that nothing in this issuance shall prevent a person covered herein in an act of goodwill from returning the full amount without deduction of relevant actual costs, meaning either the host or the venue owner or the supplier in an act of goodwill may decline to receive any refund. Or if I were the host and I am entitled to a full refund, I may, as an act of goodwill, decide to just get a partial refund and have the host and have the venue owner or the supplier retain the rest. This is, of course, under the bayanihan spirit in this period of pandemic in the Philippines and around the world. Here are the refund concession procedures. The parties concerned must observe the following. Please take note that the party who made the advance reservation or payment shall be the one to notify the owner or representative of the venue of its decision to cancel or scale down the scheduled event. In this case, during the pandemic, it was really canceled because in ECQ and MECQ, it is really canceled because only 5 people are allowed to be in an event. And then, 10 people for a GCQ quarantine, but no events during ECQ and MECQ. So within 5 days from receipt of notice, the venue owner shall send a reply acknowledging receipt of such information from the host or the client, indicating the options available together with the details on how to proceed with the option, meaning the venue owner or the supplier will acknowledge receipt of the host's intent or the client's intent, and then indicate there the options that he may avail of, the rescheduling or getting a partial refund or whatever other concessions that the venue owner or the supplier may give. And then within 5 days from receipt of the option taken, the venue owner or representative shall send a letter confirming such receipt from the client or the host. Refunds shall be implemented within the period and terms agreed upon by the parties. In the absence of any agreement, the refund shall be made within 30 days from receipt of confirmation notice by the party who made such payment. If the efforts of both parties to settle fail, if there is no agreement reached, or if either one party refuses to comply with the provisions of the Memorandum Circular 20-30, they may bring this to the attention of the DTI Fair Trade Enforcement Bureau or any DTI provincial office concerned. We have provincial offices nationwide and regional offices in all 17 regions in the country. Upon written request or issue a letter directing both parties to go through DTI's alternative dispute resolution proceedings, we shall call both parties to a mediation and help settle the matter amicably. And if this fails, the parties will have the option to bring the concern to an adjudication also under the DTI Fair Trade Enforcement Bureau, and then have our adjudication officers resolve the matter. If this fails, any aggrieved party may file an appeal with the office of the secretary, and then the secretary may decide. If still the parties do not want the resolution or the decision issued by the secretary, they may bring this to the regular court. So pending a receipt of notice from the DTI, the requesting party shall update the DTI FTEB of any development on the subject concerned. If the parties do not bring this to the attention of the DTI, or if they did and then we never got to hear from them anymore, we shall be on the assumption that the matter had already been resolved between them. Failure of a party to update the concerned DTI office shall create a presumption that the case has been resolved by the parties. And then it will be considered as a case closed. Charges and sanctions. Relevant and applicable provisions of the following may be used as basis for filing charges for violation of NC 20-30. We have the Consumer Act of the Philippines and the New Civil Code of the Philippines, also the Bayanihan to Hilas 1 Act or RA 11469. There are also other existing regulations, policies, and ordinances that may apply to the case at hand. So that is the last slide. For other DTI issuances, you may scan this code and you will see it will lead you to the DTI website where we have posted all our related issuances, especially made during the pandemic beginning from March 15 up to today. So there you go. Thank you very much.
Thank you. So now,
Joel. Yeah.
I'll introduce our panelists so that they can actually start our question and answer between our two panelists, and then we'll open up to the whole group.
Oh, Joel, I'll just get a
screen.
charger, huh? I'll get a charger lang, sorry.
And if you can stop sharing your screen.
Yeah, okay.
Okay. So, Yusek Cruz, I'll introduce our panelists while you are...
Yes, please.
So guys, ang daming that's a lot of stuff that we all need to digest. So let me introduce while we're waiting for Yusek Cruz to come in, and before I introduce our panelists, let us...
I'm here, I can hear you. I just need to plug my computer.
I was gonna do my commercial while waiting for you. So, pasok ko na yung commercial ko. So for those who are available, if you don't know what Thames International Business School is, we are an international college. We have both undergraduate and senior high school level. We are one of the few schools who have 100% online learning. And so that we have a proven online learning because we have been doing online learning since 2018. All of our lecturers are Singapore trained for online learning. And aside from that, we also do postgraduate and corporate training, particularly for logistics and supply chain management. Okay. So before we start the Q&A, please remember we still have guidelines on fast foods restaurants tomorrow, June 18. And then next week, we have guidelines on online transactions. Okay, so let me now introduce our panelists. Our panelists are Kay Isabedra from Gathered Creative and RB Pangan Delgado from Kiss the Girl event. So they'll be asking Yusek, Ruth, some questions first, basically representing the general questions of the community, and then we'll open the floor to a few questions. We already have questions out on the field, but let's give our panelists first, Kay and RB, the chance to ask questions, and hopefully their questions, for sure their questions represent most of our other questions anyway. So, Ruth, you say Ruth. Okay.
Yes, I'm here.
Can you please open your, yes.
Yes, hi Yusek, Ruth.
Hi,
RB.
Good afternoon. Hello.
Hi, good afternoon.
Initial reactions to this.
Initial reactions, a lot to take in. So I think
maybe you can talk about what your organizations do, K and RB, so at least our other participants know where your backgrounds are, and so at least they also know when you ask questions, it comes from what perspective. So Kay, maybe introduce yourself first.
Okay, so hi everyone who are watching. I'm Kay Isabedra. I own Gathered Creative. We're an event styling and floristry company. So most of our clients are couples who are getting married, but we also do like corporate events and stuff like that. So yeah, so we've been deeply affected by the pandemic. especially this is a very usual topic for us in the event industry, since like a lot of our clients have been reaching out to us, like if they can reschedule, or like for example what part of the service contract or what part of the costing or the package can they refund, etc. Yeah, so that's my field.
Okay, thanks, Kay. And Kay is also an alumni of Thames for our creative postgrad program. Importante rin sabihin yun. So Army, please introduce yourself.
Hi, sir. Hi, Yusek. Hi, sir. Good afternoon.
Hello.
Hello? Wait.
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay. Hi, good afternoon. I'm RB. I'm one of the managing partners of Kiss the Girl events. So, aside from representing the wedding industry, I also the event suppliers, the event coordinators, the wedding planners. I would like to also represent this afternoon the photographers, the makeup artists, and the videographers who were greatly affected of this pandemic. So, actually, Yusek, medyo madami-dami na po silang questions that they
Mm-hmm.
sent
Mm-hmm.
me in K as of yesterday.
Okay.
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 So why don't you go ahead, Kay, with
Mhm.
your question?
Okay, so I think Yusek, you mentioned earlier there was a column there that for example, hang on, I did the screenshot. Okay, so there were two columns earlier. So like for example, when is the event host entitled to a refund?
I can flash it again.
So for
Would you like?
example,
Yeah, we can flash that again, yeah. Sige, I'll use it.
Sige. Wait.
column is when is the event host not entitled to a refund. So on the right column there, the second point was if the contract between the parties provides that any prepayment made will be forfeited in case of for tuitus event. So yeah, so we can refund. So like for example, what if like let's say a day before the supposed like start of the ECQ, like let's say a few days before the government announced that we will be doing like we will be under ECQ, and then what if the wedding was supposed to happen a day before the like
one?
March 15? Yeah,
No,
so before March
that's not.
15.
Is this the one?
Sorry, it's the
I'll share it, Joel.
Sige.
Kasi, ano.
yeah.
Mm-mm.
And so this pertaining to the second point, so what if, let's say, for example, you were mentioning earlier about the contracts, the signed contracts. So what if the other party, the client, signed a contract that they're agreeing that we cannot refund any payments made, especially if it's due to force majeure or unforeseen circumstances. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So what?
Okay.
But yeah. So what are your thoughts on, let's say, if magpipilit yung client, like, oh, we deserve this refund because precisely because it's force majeure, and yeah, things like that.
The force majeure event in Memorandum Circular 20-30 are exceptions. This happens in the in the event that there is no contract between the parties. So if there is an agreed terms, especially when there is an existing document between you two that you have signed, and unless of course there is force or duress in the signing, but since there is none, and we wouldn't think that there is, it was upon the will of both parties, and we would respect that. If there is a fortuitous, if there's a force majeure provision in the contract, the government will not intervene.
So in other words,
So we respect yes, we respect the provisions of the contract on force majeure.
so in other words, Yusek, when we say kasi force majeure, and if I could interject, okay. So a force majeure could be even like the earthquake that happened in
Yes.
sorry, not the earthquake, the eruption in Tagaytay, diba? So a lot of weddings were also canceled. So in a way, you're treating the COVID-19 pandemic as equivalent to a force majeure event like the Tagaytay or Taal volcano eruption. Parang
Mm-hmm.
so if that happened, it's a force majeure, and if it's a force majeure in the contract, kumbaga, wala nang chance to get a refund if that's really stated in the contract. Is that my...
That's right. Yeah.
If the
Yes,
client
yes,
signed,
you're
yeah.
right. You're right, Joel. But of course, there is also a provision in which I read earlier, that nothing in this issuance shall prevent a person covered herein to, provide the act of goodwill. You can probably split it if there was no actual cost incurred by the venue owner, and then especially if the event was already fully paid and that it did not happen, diba? Out of goodwill, you just probably give a percentage or refund a certain percentage, maybe half of it, para fair and square. In the event that there is a contract, huh?
Okay.
Yeah. So what if, let's say, for example, so we have, like, for example, in our cost breakdown in our packages, so we have the professional fee, and then also, let's say, the flowers, etc., the prop rentals and everything, transportation and logistics. If what if, let's say, for example, let's say you were saying out of goodwill, so for example, we're willing to, let's say, refund, like, for example, a part of the professional fee and also the transportation logistics on the that was supposed to be used on the day of the event. So for example, we're willing to refund that and everything, but what if the client asks for something more than that? Like, yeah, so what can we say to them? Or yeah, how can we explain it to them fully?
Because strictly, if you're in the existence of a contract, strictly if you're going to enforce it, the client will not receive any refund, right?
Mhm.
Okay, we're talking about when there is a contract and when there is a provision on fortuitous events. Hello.
Yeah, actually,
Hello,
kay,
sorry, yes.
means that kasi from a layman's perspective, pag may kontrata, the contract kasi is
Basically, it has to be,
yeah,
yeah.
and then all the rest, ano na yun eh. Parang, ano na, parang goodwill na lang, relationship,
Yeah,
parang,
yeah.
ano lang. Kaya
Okay.
that's where, in the last Ask DTI nga, we had last week, a lot of it comes to, kumbaga, negotiations na lang between the two parties eh. Because if we're really gonna follow contract, and most people don't read the fine print in the contract eh.
Yes.
Diba? And diba, most people don't read the fine print of the contract, kaya nagkakaganyan. Nakalagay talaga sa kontrata eh. So that's where relationships come in.
Yeah, kasi at the end of the day, it all boils down to negotiation. Diba? Everything naman is negotiable, everything can be discussed amicably. So, baka pwedeng usapan na lang, even in the presence of a contract, kahit may kontrata kayo. Diba? And it says, forfeited everything in case of force majeure. The businesses also, kunyari, if I were the supplier, as an act of goodwill, especially if the client appeals, hindi ba? Bigay ko na din, sige, share na lang tayo, let's split the burden and let's split the refund, di ba? Pwede naman yun rin yun. At the end of the day, also for businesses, should I stop sharing? I'll stop sharing.
Yes.
At the end of the day, also, it would help build your name and your reputation, kasi DTI is very much concerned about building the name and reputation of the businesses to build consumer confidence. Diba? It will also help you to give that concession.
Okay. Thanks, Yusek. Maybe, RB, you can ask some of your questions and some of our supplier friends' questions.
Okay.
Okay. Hi, good afternoon, Yusek. One of the questions that was asked, that was sent to me, it was mentioned in one of your slide that regarding the incurred expenses. But I think we all in the events industry, we can also consider the clients, yung mga natanggihang clients for a date as incurred expenses, right, Yusek? So, for example, most of our contracts has reservation fees that's non-refundable for video, photo, wedding coordinators, and for everyone. And then, what if the client decides to postpone their event, let's say between July to December, wherein there's no memorandum yet of what GCQ or MGCQ, are they are they also eligible to get refunds from the supplier or not? Or depende na rin po dun sa goodwill like what you mentioned?
In the absence of a contract?
May contract po, may contract. But some of the clients, for example, their wedding will be like October this year or December this year, but they want to refund from the supplier. Are they eligible for the refund even if there is no memorandum yet of the current situation?
Wala pa, hindi pa natin alam kasi if it's outside the period covered na, we'll never know. Baka we find a cure tomorrow for COVID-19, hindi ba? And then everything else will go back to normal. So we're just talking about the period covered during GCQ. What comes after that, we still do not know. So better to just discuss everything with the client.
Okay. Thank you, Yusek. Last na lang po. One of a client also, but not a friend.
Hindi naman pwede, okay lang kahit hindi last question yan. Pwede ka pa magtanong ng iba.
Ay, hindi ba?
Sige, go ahead. What's your question?
Okay, one of another supplier asked one of their client used the Bayanihan Heal as One app. So, for example, if the validity can, for example, the client sign the contract after the imposition of GCQ, but they're fully aware of what will happen. So, are they entitled for the refund even if they signed and they know that there is a existing pandemic?
No, actually, one of the conditions for entitlement to refund here is that the payment was made before the declaration of a public health emergency or the state of calamity. Kasi if you made the payment during the calamity, parang stop ka na from claiming anything else. I mean, you're all
you
set.
already know the situation, parang ganun.
You're already prevented from making any claims kasi alam mo naman na naka state of calamity tayo, di ba?
Okay. Thank you, Yusek.
Thank you.
Okay.
Sorry, I have another question. Yeah. Just a quick question. So Yusek, you mentioned also earlier, like for example, the clients can consume the amount paid at a later date, maybe within 1 year from the date of, let's say, March 15, no? When ECQ was implemented. But like for example, because usually I think most of the event suppliers, or I don't know if in like outside the event industry, so for example, we have the annual like sort of inflation rate. So let's say we need to increase, like for example, the transportation and logistics charges, or let's say there's an X% increase in the professional fee, etc. So can we impose that on the revised contract for someone who rebooked their wedding to 2021?
When you provide the concession, it's best that you, of course, discuss all the terms. Diba? If you want to include that, okay naman. And then if the client agrees, then fine. You have a new contract.
Okay.
You provide that concession.
Okay.
So all the terms may be customized according to what the parties will agree on or what they want.
Okay. Thanks, Yusek.
Okay, let's answer some of the questions from the audience. So, okay, there are some not related questions. I will put you later. Let's go first to the ones that I guess are taking advantage. Some of the questions were from last week. You said yung mga hindi naka-attend. Ngayon sumali para tanungin kayo about leases. Tapusin muna natin ito sa refund and balikan natin yung iba. So from King Jennifer, until when can they ask for the refund?
I'm sorry?
The question of King Jenny, until when can we do a refund? I think that's the period.
Yeah, the period for refund upon agreement is, if there is no agreement, bahala kayo. I mean, first, of course, an option will be given for the parties to decide when the refund will be done. In the absence of any such agreement, 30 days. Refund must be made 30 days.
Okay. Clarification lang to from Alvin Del Cruz. I'd like to clarify again, for payment made during March 16 after the proclamation of the ECQ, it's not entitled to a refund. I think you answered that already, right?
Yes, no more entitlement kasi ano na tayo noon, we knew already we had an issue.
Yeah. Now, this one from Evelyn Velasco. For a conference, how would you consider the registration fees paid by the participants? The registration fees were used already for conference preparation.
Wow, oo nga no. So there might have been guests who already prepaid, but the guests, kasi whoever organized it will have to return the funds kasi hindi naman natuloy yung conference. So if there is something like this na prepaid or sold to someone else, you'll have to return it because that's another issue altogether.
Actually, maraming ang tinamaang concert. Ako rin Yusek. There's a concert that it's an international group coming to the Philippines. International concert. I bought it for my daughter. Kailangan samahan ko siya. I forgot what it is. But they're not returning. They canceled it or they said postponed. They haven't actually said anything, and then we're asking for the refund. They're not giving us any answers. So parang din yun, di ba? Because you paid and there was supposed to be this event, and then they're not coming back to us on what's the next step.
That's right. It's a domino effect kasi especially if it's a concert or a show or a conference na ganyan. The customers buy the tickets and then the event organizer pays the speaker or the talent or the artist or whoever.
The venue,
so,
di ba? Yeah, lahat.
Domino siya eh. It will all boil down to goodwill. Kasi if there is a contract between the events organizer and the talent naman that says any fortuitous event shall not entitle the host or the events organizer to a refund. Goodwill lang siya talaga. And then if I were the artist or the talent, di ba, who's supposed to make the performance and then the event was canceled, I will have to return it out of goodwill, whatever was paid to me, even if there is a...
That are saying we as the audience who paid for the ticket, we have no recourse if the concert organizer decided not to return it?
No, the customer will always have the refund. But it's going to be a problem of the events organizer.
Okay, he will have to shoulder the loss.
Yeah, he will have to shoulder everything and go after the talent or the speaker or mga ganong instances. But the customer will always have to get the refund for services not rendered.
Okay. I think there's another question from Rowena Tuason, but I think we answered this already. She said that reservation fee that indicates non-refundable are the clients entitled to a refund. It's really goodwill na, di ba? As we said, nasa contract non-refundable eh. So, kumbaga, wala na siyang recourse if it's basically follow the contract and any adjustments to the contract is based out of goodwill. Parang ganun yung rule of thumb, di ba, Yusek?
Right. Kasi even in the existence of a contract, kung, di ba, out of goodwill, the venue owner might still want to give more concessions, even beyond what is provided in MC 2013, di ba?
Yeah, that's why. Kasi, like, for example, like RB, di ba, and K, if you're the regular suki of that venue for all of your weddings and activity, di ba, I'm sure that's part of the relationship, di ba? Kasi, right? I mean, I'd expect that. Here's another from Stephanie De Cheta, which is interesting. Is an oral contract binding as to this case?
Siguro in a world where honor is committed, honor is a virtue, siguro pwede, pero in the absence of a contract in the legal world, verbal agreements are, the Philippines kasi is not by practice non-verbal contract people, hindi ba? So we always want to see the document and the signature where we express our acquiescence or agreement to the provisions. It always has to be in writing. So if there is a verbal agreement between the parties, it is not considered in the Philippines as a valid contract.
Okay, parang ano yan? Parang ano, pag sinabi ng lalaki, mahal kita. Unless tinala ka niya sa altar.
Oo.
Yeah, so
Joel,
Kasi sanay sa kasal di ba? So,
and in the Philippines, pag minsan nga may written contract na, hindi pa na fulfill yung obligations, di ba?
tama yun.
So Yusek, yeah, so in relation to what you mentioned, I have a friend who's also an account manager in a photo and video firm or studio. And then, yeah, so is it the same? Like, what if, she said, what if no signature ang client sa contract pero accepted nila? So it's the same, I think, is it the same? Like, for example, like, I don't know, maybe nakalimutan i-send or...
It is as if there is no contract.
So the client has the right to ask for like a refund from the parang they're eligible for the refund.
It is as if there is no contract where the provisions of MC 20-30 apply. May conditions rin naman dito, like if the down payment was made after declaration of the health emergency or calamity, di ba? Or if the expenses were incurred by the venue owner after the declaration, no entitlement to refund yon pagka ganun, or to retain any portion of the amount paid.
Okay. Thanks, Yusek.
Are you going to ask something? No. Okay. What if this is from Maripa Santa Ana? Very technical. What if the location of the event host and the event venue have different quarantine classifications? Say, MGCQ for the venue while GCQ for the event host. Can the event host opt to ask for refund? I'm not really clear about this question. Kasi GCQ and MGCQ, meron bang big difference for events, you say?
For events, kasi in GCQ areas, 10 people lang. In MGCQ, probably dadamihan pero hindi pa rin siya ganun kadami for a wedding or a big event. So if there is not much difference between the protocols in both quarantines, we apply the GCQ. Yun yung covered kasi ng ating contract until GCQ. I mean, covered by Memorandum Circular 20-30.
Okay. So, from Anmi Luna, ito naman, it's about the date. So just want to clarify if the memo 2030 at this point does not cover forward events, example, October 2020 or Jan 20, since they do not know yet if Manila will still be in GCQ by then. Even if the event host client had already signified cancellation due to the pandemic, I think they're asking kung makaka-refund sila for future events, di ba? Pero hindi pa siya kasama sa circular. But I guess iniisip nung client, mahirap na kung last minute mag-cancel, di ba? Especially if you're talking about people flying in, di ba? So, ano yung especially if it's a wedding, di ba? I mean, even October is questionable So they might just decide to cancel it na. Pero wala nga siya sa circular. How do you handle things like that, you say?
But in the event that in October, we're still in GCQ, then we are still covered by 2030. Kunyari, hindi ma-lift yung GCQ. Yung
but this one is saying they wanted to parang refund na because parang feeling nila mag-e-extend lang. So parang inunahanan lang in the contract. Dapat.
Pwede naman, I would think, agreement na lang yan, negotiation na lang yun with lalo na if there is a contract. I think it would always work when the customer or the client discusses this nicely with the business side, with the supplier or the venue owner, di ba? Everything naman, I think, can be discussed amicably.
Ayan, lahat dapat pwedeng pag-usapan. Yung nga, hirap dito. Kung madali ka usap. Kaya make sure before you do anything, hanapin nyo na yung madali ka usapin because we never know what the future is. Ganun talaga. From Rowena to Ason, Yusek, how about the incoming events for July onwards? Are they allowed to hold the party na po? Kasi our venue is too big for 10 persons. And as we read, we hold the events half of the venue. So parang, I guess, di ba, there's they cannot maximize na the capacity because ni-reduce pero gusto pa rin ituloy. So,
that's parang one sector of the entire business industry, the business community that is very much affected by this pandemic is the events sector. I don't think it would be wise for any person right now to engage anyone for an event happening until the end of the year, because from the side of government, we have canceled all travels until next year. So everything scheduled until December this year is already canceled, unless it's the secretary, the secretary or the president attending international events that are still happening around the world. So,
yan, Kaya, RB, before you can travel, dapat presidente muna kayo. Diba? Presidente, gusto niya mag-travel.
Noted.
So parang even for the let's hope that things get better after June. Pero for now, hindi na muna tayo kahit kayo on the MSMEs, I don't think you should engage in any agreement at this time for any event this year.
Okay, thank you. Then Irish law, this one gusto pa rin niya ituloy. Kaya lang yung in the case that the client agrees to move the date, pero ayaw raw magbayad ng price increase due to inflation. What's the price increase due to? How can the supplier be protected? I could answer this for you, pero ikaw na lang, Yusek.
Sige, please. Kasi price increase due to inflation, our inflation rate is low. Diba? As of...
kung mga 4% lang, pag-aawayan niyo pa ba yun? Grabe naman. Diba? Anyway. If the couple decides to change the date, do they need to provide a new contract? Or can they just amend it?
They can amend it. They can issue a new contract. If they are renegotiating, okay lang naman to come up with a new one or amend, as long as all the amendments are signed by both parties.
Okay, Ronald Lee, your question was already answered. I'm not treating it, but if you heard it, it's been answered. Pag nakalagay non-refundable, non-refundable. Diba? So, usapan niyo lang. Okay. Will the DTI, this is from Doji Fabian, will the DTI be the final say, wow, in the determination of total expenses in case there is a dispute regarding the amount to be refunded?
If we have laid down the procedure earlier, if there is any dispute and this is not resolved at the level of DTI, after mediation, we go to adjudication, and then the parties, either aggrieved party still has the option to go to the secretary, and then if they still do not, or if they still feel aggrieved by the decision of the secretary, they can go to court. So no, we are not the last say. The court can still resolve the issue for the parties.
Okay, in advance we're telling you the Philippine Chamber of Commerce is coming up with a mediation facility kasi nga telling everybody because you cannot all go to court. It's you're gonna clog up our courts.
No.
So as much as possible, I think like the PCCI, we will be working with, is gonna do a mediation court, not a court, but a mediation facility, because particularly for the events in the CRB, it's better to do mediation kung talaga hindi ma-resolve ng tamang usapan. Kasi nga, you can't always go to court. Mauubos ang pera nyo sa lawyers. Tuwan-tuwa nga yung mga lawyers ngayon eh. Di ba? So, do we need to ask back from the client the official receipt upon issuance of the refund? From King Jennifer. O nga, no, pag nag-refund, paano ba yun? Babalik yung OR?
Oo. You can void all documents issued. So if you issued the receipt, get it back. If not, void it na lang in your your records, or also void the contract if there is.
Okay. So eto, si May Manyalak. If a client is harassing us because we cannot issue the refund and has to stick to the non-refundable clause of the contract, what can we do? Can we ask DTI to mediate? Obviously, di ba, Yusek? Pero hinaharas na raw sila eh. Si Yusek Cruz, may alam ba kayo martial arts, Yusek? Parang humihingi protection nyo eh. Hinaharas siya ng kliyente.
Okay, has to stick with the non-refundable clause of the contract. Joel, ano yun?
They're speaking to
That
it,
is a
ayaw
contract.
pumayag ng kliyente. So talagang hinaharas na raw sila.
Ayaw pumayag ng kliyente na hindi mag-refund, na
Oh,
makakuha.
the I guess the event company saying nasa kontrato non-refundable. So ayan na, di ba?
Oh, okay.
Haras na raw sila. Non-judiciary action na yung ginagawa.
Oo, but we should both respect the contract, both parties. If there is a contract that says that, and the money is no longer with the business side, with the supplier or the venue owner, then talk na lang nicely to the client. Diba? I will go back to saying that there is nothing that cannot be discussed amicably.
Yun na nga ho eh. So, yan pag there's a lot of questions ang sagot talaga pag-usapan. Pero kung ayaw talagang pag-usapan yan, tawagan niyo si Tulfo. That's gonna be worse. Worst solution. Sorry. I don't know him. But anyway, Evelyn Velasco. This is a follow-up on the conference. Part of the registration fees paid by the person went to conference fees, blah, 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 blah. So in other words, may gastos na nga sila, di ba? And they're saying, in our case, our conference schedule is a few days after the announcement of the lockdown and already everything has been sent. Yeah, kawawa naman, di ba? If it was just right after, lahat na gastos na nila, bigla na cancel.
But if these are for collaterals for the participants, maybe they can just give it to them and then refund na lang a portion of whatever was not spent by the whoever organized the conference.
Actually, that's true. One of our events that got canceled, pinadala lang sa amin yung mga giveaways.
Yeah.
That's what we did.
Pinadala mo yung bulaklak?
Or that got canceled. Na pinadala namin yung flowers. So we sent them the flowers because we don't have anything to do with that amount of flowers, and kumbaga they actually paid for those. So yeah, so di din nila alam kung ano gagawin, but I think they just gave it away to like hospitals, and yeah.
That's right.
Kasi actual cost na yun eh, di ba?
Yeah.
So if you really spent for it, ibigay nyo na lang sa kanila so they would also know that you have really spent for the event already.
This one, he says, galing kay Michelle De Vera, what if the client signed the proposal? Tapos nakalagay raw doon yung force majeure, but no signed contract. Yung proposal lang na sign. Can they use the signed proposal na raw as the legal reference, not the signed contract?
But if there is a conformity to the proposal, hindi ba parang contract na din yun?
Yeah, that's my understanding. Kasi there's something signed na eh. Parang to follow na lang yung the contract, di ba?
Yeah.
So, in general, that's already in a way a signed agreement, no? The proposal, kung nag-conforme na eh. Conforme. Ano tingin niyo, Yusek?
Yeah, kung nag-conform na siya, if he signed his conformity already, so it's a valid contract. It's considered a contract because the consent is already expressed in writing.
This one naman from ASUS. If the conference was postponed last March and it's moved to the third quarter or whenever it's possible to have it, can they still ask for the refund now?
Well, in the absence of a contract, yes, they can ask for a refund now. And then tell them that you're no longer interested to hold it at any other time, pero provided that whatever expenses incurred legitimately by the provider will have to be considered also in the refund.
So like now, for like this is the same example as the concert that we paid for.
Yeah.
The person says, next year na kami, but me and my daughter can't go. We can ask for the refund. You're saying they can deduct from the refund? You say?
Oo, kasi kunyari, like a concert, they already bought the what do you call that? Mga souvenirs. They can show you naman eh. It's proof also that they have incurred expenses already. Kung meron na silang legitimate. This is not for the concert, ha?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Oo, this is for the confidence. Kung meron
For
namang proof
confidence.
na naka-souvenirs or kits or whatever,
Okay.
collaterals.
Okay. I don't know. This is really not part, pero I'll start answering some of the ones for last week. This one's from Alvin Dec. What about hotel booking refunds? That's is that part of this refund? Is this part of this MC hotel bookings?
Not for a room.
Yes.
For a room, they will offer you a voucher, but yes, you can demand for a refund. They can offer you a voucher or for future use or another reservation date, yes. But you can also demand for a refund.
Okay. Siguro last two questions. This about last week. Commercial rents raw. Ito lang, I'll just say this kasi ito is really, ang dami niyang emoji na umiiyak siya eh. Si Rowena Ikay. Commercial rent. I'm a newbie entrepreneur. I just started my food cart business. All caps pa to yo. Last March 15, then lockdown happened on March 16. Now my tenants want to refund the 2 months advance rentals, 2 months deposited. They have not paid me the backlog rents for April, May, June, and as of today, I'm just a subleasing, meaning I have my lessor, the unit owner. You will not waive the lockdown period, March, April, May, June. Need your help. Last week, sinagot natin yan, Yusek, di ba?
Oo, pero kasi kung if rental payments are accrued during the period of community quarantine and then they want to terminate the contract and you can agree, fine, and they have not paid anything, pero apply whatever deposit or down payment was made to the months that they did not actually pay. Oo. So pwedeng he can refuse to return the deposit and down payment kung meron siyang unpaid rentals for the period. Kung gusto na mag-terminate, they cannot refund it kasi she can use it first because we provided for deferment of payments, di ba, ng rental. So what we always say that the lessor may use that money first until all this is settled, and then there is a 6-month period pa for deferred payment of rental fees. Pero kung gusto i-terminate nung client, nung tenant, maybe you can agree and then just apply the deposit and down payment to the unpaid rents.
Ito, rent uli. Humahabol na hindi kayo kasi dapat sumama kay last week eh. Pero this is from Joseph Ranyolia, DTI RO5. What does that mean?
Our regional office.
So Joseph Ranyolia is
in 5.
office, okay. He's asking about the memo circle on rents. The community quarantine law and restrictions were not considered as unforeseen and uncontrollable events, unlike in this MC that can cancel. So in a way, the MCs for rents means we still have to pay. Hindi daw siya considered fortuitous events.
Yeah, okay.
So,
I will answer.
I guess you're asking bakit pag-event fortuitous pag yung rental hindi. Yeah.
Oo, I will answer, Joseph, kasi generally government really cannot intervene in private contracts between the employer and business or the tenants and landlord. We cannot intervene, and all we can do is defer payment because that's a valid contract between the parties. It's a leasehold contract. Iba naman yung contract for services that may be provided by the supplier or the venue owner or the events organizer, and then the customer. Magkaiba siya in the sense that the occupancy in a tenancy agreement is already made. If you live there, special for residential rent, and if you use the place for business, you're still under contract, or whether or not there is a contract, you still live in that place, or you still use this for business except that it was closed. So we cannot ask the lessor to waive any payment or to refund any payment for that matter.
Okay. I hope that helps you, Joseph, because I'm sure a lot of people are asking you that question. Okay, eto na naman. Hinaharas na rin raw siya ng kanyang kliyente na humihingi ng refund. Ito kay Rowena Tuason. the same issue, ipapatulfo na raw siya. So, naging verb na si tulfo, ipapatulfo, di ba? Ganun na pala siya kaano. So again, they're all being harassed by their clients asking for a refund. RP, kayo ba hinaharas ba kayo? Hindi naman. Hindi naman, di ba? But some talaga hinaharas, they're asking for the full refund. Pero may mga kontrata nga. That's hard.
Pero kasi kung wala ka naman talagang, di ba, any legitimate business, if you really did not incur expenses, example, the down payment was made in January, the event was to be in April, wala ka pa naman na gastos, isoli mo na just to keep your business also and your reputation and to keep your relationship with the client.
Yeah, yan ang magandang advice, di ba, Yusek? Alam nyo, kahit tama kayo, nasa kontrata, sometimes we have to magbigayan because we know it naman eh. Even though it's in the contract, there's no refund. Kung di mo naman talaga nagastos lahat, pag-usapan nyo na lang. Tama naman yun. I mean, not everything has to be based on the contract. Yan ang advice ko lang. In the end, I think gamitin na lang natin ang ating what we call moral judgment, right? And I think if we pray about our movements, I think we'll be guided the right way. So even though there's a contract, like all things, pwede naman pag-usapan. So, okay, that ends. I'm sorry, there's still a lot more, but then usually we end around this time and we extend it a little bit. I just wanted to remind everybody that tomorrow, wait, sa akin ba to? Yeah. So tomorrow, yung mga fast food and restaurants and salons, pwede ba kayo magpagupit? Pwede ba kayong kumain sa labas? Malalaman nyo bukas. Di ba? So, please tell your friends they want to join tomorrow, yung mga fast food restaurants and salons. And then next week naman, guidelines on online transactions. Huwag kayo magpa-scam. Di ba? Marami ring refund dyan issues. Paano pag hindi dumating yung food nyo? Di ba? So, there's a lot of that. So every week we'll have this the DTI, it's doing its best to be able to have open doors and open questions. Si Yusek Ruth, nako, one meeting after the other, and we really appreciate you giving us this opportunity to engage with you every week. Si RB tsaka si Kay, they represent so many people, so I hope that you can share, diba, that the DTI is always available and always ready to address concerns, di ba? Nagtatrabaho po ang ating gobyerno. Yan si Yusek Cruz, sobrang sipag. Nagugulat ako sa energy na. Tapos looking pretty pa rin, di ba? Kahit paling naman ang makeup nyo, di ba? So, kahit pagod, okay.
Thank you, Yusek.
Tuloy ako. Thank you.
Di ba? Okay. So thank you very much to everybody, and we'll see you tomorrow for all of the restaurant salon issues. And naka-post na po sa chat for everybody for those who want to register for tomorrow. Thank you very much, everybody, and enjoyed the rest of your day. Thank you, RB. Thank you, Kay.
Thank you.
Thank you, Joel. See you tomorrow.
Thank you.
Thank you.